Now in this tutorial we're going to dig into the clam roll. The clam roll is I think a more advanced cousin of the flick flack. Flick flack of course is where the kite in midair flips, bottom tips up, showing you the back of the kite with the lines rolled up, and then immediately flips back. Now the clam roll actually does the flip and sticks to the ground in its landed position. You can sit it there as long as you want, and then once you have it, when you're ready to recover it, you just give it a very similar input and snap it back to its feet. So with that, let's take a look. All right, so that's the clam roll in action. Let's go ahead and break it down. So as far as getting into it, it's going to be a little bit different from kite to kite, but the basic inputs remain the same. So the first thing that I'm going to focus on when I'm doing this, one is that I have a kite that's heavy enough relative to the wind condition that I can flip it, that it has enough weight and stiffness that I can really impact it and make it move. The other, for the initial setup, is making sure that I put the kite into as far a forward position as I can without it taking off. So I don't want it to launch, but I want to be in a pretty full thumbs back position like this. And what you're going to notice is that there's a pretty aggressive wrist snap in place. I don't pull very much on the kite because I don't want to load it up. I'm just trying to flip it and then release it. So there's this flip, and then I'm almost leading forward with the thumbs and my body, watching the kite roll all the way up. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so it's a pretty aggressive little snap, very short, very concise and powerful, and then instantaneously letting the kite go. Very similar to the axle tutorial where you saw an impact and immediate slack, already moving forward even as you're hitting the kite. That does come into play, especially when the wind is a little bit higher and the kite requires that additional slack to do it. So now what we're looking for is the angle. Once it's flipped and it makes contact with that leading edge, there's going to be a particular angle that the kite is more secure in. And then there's also a particular angle that's better for the exit, which we'll get to next. But let's look at the actual lean back angle. So here we go, full thumb forward. And when I make this strike, because my right hand is stronger than my left, I have to be very conscious to make sure that I'm doing a whole four string sort of two hands of one mind input. Because otherwise my right hand will take off stronger and actually twist the kite, and I don't get quite as good a clam roll out of it. So here we go. There it is. So we have it in the back position. Generally, when you've done it consistently, the lines are, depending on the bridle and the kite you're on, the lines will be between the verticals. But frankly, I haven't found that that makes a tremendous difference in my ability to exit. Now with the kite lean back like this, let's just take a look. So there's, of course, if I go too far back in that direction, I run the chance of the leading edge slipping out or the kite falling down, and thereby I have no more bite in the kite, and I can't recover it using the traditional clam roll exit. Now the other, and I'm going to show you actually what happens, is if the kite didn't rotate far enough, or if I start to pull my brake lines, those bottom tips that are now upward, too much, the kite is going to start to float and flip. I'm going to show you what, there it is. So I've lost the grip. So as soon as I do that too much, then the kite is not going to behave the way that I want it to. So let's go ahead and set that up again. Nice snap to the clam roll. There it is, came off nice and square. And then from here, what I'm going to do is with a little bit of practice, you figure out at which point you lift and the kite starts to budge. At the moment before it hits that point, you're going to see that I aggressively, again, hit that quick snap, and I pretty well double time backward after I make that input, not during. So here we go. I'm going to lift these tips to the key point, and then I'm going to snap, and hopefully I get a good recovery out of this. There it is. So you can see that the hand motion is pretty quick. Having given you the information that we have so far, let's take a look at a few of those in slow motion and we can really break it down. All right, having done a few of those, you can start to see a little bit more of the nuance that's going into it. The twist in the hands, or the bottom line strike, if you see that in the slow motion, you probably picked up on the fact that a lot of the impact is going down. So what that allows me to do is to give it a strong, big, large motion, glancing blow off those bottom lines without pulling on the kite and loading in a bunch of tension or sail load, which works against the clam roll. So having mentioned that, let's take a look at that again one more time in slow motion. All right, so there's the basic explanation of the clam roll. Some of my favorite applications for this are hitting it out of a rotation, a bicycle spin, or a rollover landing, things like that. And what I'll offer about that, as far as a transitional move, not just a trick, is making sure that after you've done any sort of rotation or setup for that clam roll, that you've basically squared up the pressure in the kite, and that you're actually feeling 4 lines square, and it's no longer in its turn personality, that it's now in its straight personality the moment that you hit it. So with that, I'm going to show you a few demos of different approaches with that clam roll, and then you can pick it apart for yourself. All right, so now that we've shown a few of the different ways that you can attack it, I also want to take a moment to show some of the ways that the clam roll goes wrong and how I deal with that, because it is an odd maneuver. The one thing that I will say from having shared the tips on how to do this with a number of people and seeing the learning process is that the biggest two things that new flyers will do that work against their success rate at getting the clam roll. One is pulling during that snap. You want to snap and release. Make sure that you're not pulling the kite too much on the entry to it. And then the other is that they're not allowing the kite enough slack during the roll-up process. And so I'm just going to show you what that looks like. If I don't allow enough, I go here, and there it lifts. I'm going to do that again so you can really see that one more time. I go, but I didn't quite give it enough slack to let it roll up. Now, I also want to throw in too, we have a flat relaunch tutorial on the website, and if you find yourself in any odd positions, that may very well come in handy. But with regard to learning the clam roll, the one closing piece that I'm going to offer is, as you're learning, if you find that it's doing what it just did a lot for you, I would suggest practicing over rolling it. What I mean by that simply is, again, if you just again and again and again aren't getting enough roll, draw your arms in, set this foot back so that you're able to transition forward and release your arms same time, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that this kite rolls up past the clam roll point and goes flat, and that looks like this. There it is. So again, if you're having consistent difficulty getting that clam roll to lock in, well, find out what's on the other side, and then eventually just shave that back until you actually get it stuck in place. So with that in mind, have fun. Between the clam roll, the axle, and the flick flack, which we'll cover in another tutorial, you know, have a lot of fun, mix in the freestyle, and be safe, and hopefully I'll see you on the field somewhere.